To work. Good morning, everyone. So packed agenda as we always do. So is there anything we'd like to add? I think Sherry, we can talk about this partly between the communication education discussion and the countermeasures section. If that works for you. All right. There's nothing further for the agenda. One of the minutes. It's a minute to look at the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes as presented? You look at the minutes anymore, so the minutes are approved as presented without corrections. Audience of citizens, anybody have anything on their mind they want to share with us today?
I do.
Good. Just name and address for the record.
John Warren, 33 Cherry Valley Road. I just wanted to bring up the issue on cameras. I think they're a good tool to use, but if we're gonna start ticketing people on it, I totally disapprove of that method. I do have a background with using cameras quite a bit. I did security, did corrections. And it's just that sometimes the camera does not put the full picture square in the middle of the incident. I've been involved in incidences where people thought, oh, that incident is going to be square in the picture, and then they think that this is going to solve all the problems, and then they're left to say to themselves, I wish we had another camera at that angle looking at it from this point. Another reason why I disapprove of using the license plate to ticket the person is because I was involved in an incident in Manchester, and it didn't involve cameras, but it involved my license plate. And the cops came into my house, knocked the doors down because they thought I had just evaded them from a car chase. The incident that had happened was that my car was stolen from a garage. So they used my license plate and came in, and they were pretty aggressive when they came in. They knocked the door off, came in, and then they started making demands upon me, yelling. I tried to explain, what's going on, how come they're in my house and everything like that. So, and I know that this is a little extreme, but the point is that they used my license plate. And here they came into my house. The other thing too is there's an incident that just occurred just 2 days ago at a correctional facility where a woman was assaulted, correctional staff. And the place was loaded with cameras. But the inmate knew to drag her off to the side where there was no cameras. So my point is if we think we're going to solve this problem with cameras, I think we need to really relook at this issue here. So probably have more about this, but I'm not going to bore everyone any more on this topic, but that's my stance.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
To relate this item, I just wanted to thank the committee. I'm sitting here because everybody in this room can tell a story about traffic, and the idea that the committee systematically looking at the data is really important to me. And I wanted to mention that the survey you sent out for the town, the development planning, there were traffic related questions in there, and I assume someone's looking at them. I don't know what the response rate was to the survey either, but those might be a valuable source of data for you to look at. I haven't heard mentioned this.
They're still tabulating all the information. I know we're gonna get a chance to look at it pretty soon as they work to revise P O C D, which is something on our agenda today to discuss as well. Thank you. Anything else? Old business, plan of conservation and development. I used a template that a couple of other committees and commissions have used to put together significant events of the past 10 years, concerns for the next decade, and goals and hopes. Just some things that came to my head as I was looking around. I looked at the document from 10 years ago, which admittedly the traffic transportation section is quite small. But we didn't have this committee 10 years ago, so maybe we have more we want to put in there this time. But this was just a first crack at it specifically. I've only been a resident in town for a couple of years, so if anyone has any other significant events they'd like to include in this second section here, please feel free to bring them up. You disagree with anything that is listed here? Be a great time to bring that up too. Yeah.
In this document you're asking?
The town of Columbia Plan Conservation and Development sheet.
Right.
Yes, okay, yes, that is. Yeah.
I had a question about who maintains the rail trail sections. It talks in this pedestrian and bicycle path section about rail trails. And I wondered who in our town maintains our sections of that.
Depending on the trail, it's one of several different folks. Some of it is Public Works, some of it is literally Tom McGrath going around on his time and taking care of the trails. Depends on if it's Sega Farm, Hop River, other. So there are several different entities.
Do you have a concern with the portion of the trail?
No, not specifically. I had noticed that there was a section that got overgrown in the spring that was totally different than other sections, but I don't have any complaints at this moment. It was on the airline trail. But I'm not, honestly, I don't have the solution.
It's not a lot of airline trail in Columbia, actually,
Okay,
small section,
yeah,
it's
it's
just on 80.
near like Cook Road and,
No, so that's the only section we have is between. We're on 87, go a little bit south, a little bit, east and west. But it's
okay.
not much of
I
a
don't
section.
think that's where it was then.
That's not much of a section. I believe town 11, people in town 11 do a lot of maintenance. I think they just continue through because it's you go from Lebanon, a little bit of Columbia back into Lebanon. So
Yeah,
that
there was just one section that was clearly different from us, but I was just curious and, it's not a concern right now.
Well, I think it still could potentially be called out as a concern to watch for the next decade is make sure we are maintaining the trails properly because they are a mode of transportation in town for pedestrians. Any other additions, subtractions, comments?
You listed increasing vehicular through traffic along street routes and major local roads. Is it actually increasing?
It might. Potentially.
Cause didn't traffic like in the state as a whole decrease after COVID with so many people working from home? I know some people have gone back now, but I thought traffic was decreasing.
And I don't have the data on what the expected trends are, and part of that is going to be coming to us from the town planner as part of working this, so we might say, no, that's not really a concern, straight off there, but.
Yeah, it just seems that if we're gonna put forward concerns, they should be backed by something other than opinions.
I'll say potential. Okay, well. Now, Tanner. Yeah, if he says, no, there's not really a concern that we're gonna see more traffic on the roads in Columbia in the next decade, then we could remove that from concerns.
I think if businesses require employees to go back to work. Lessen of what, of vehicular traffic from COVID will naturally will increase. As people go back to work, but this also says concerns for the next decade. These are thoughts, so I think. You know, it could happen type of thing, there's a lot of stuff in there. I understand your point, I also understand.
Yeah, I understand a lot of things could happen, it just, the world changes.
If there is, it's more of, if there is an increase in vehicular traffic along our roads, it will potentially have an impact that we want to understand and address, so.
There was a section, there is a section here about the 7 bridges.
Where is she?
Out here,
Oh, you're looking at the actual P O C D chapter 116, yes.
yeah, that's what I'm looking at, sorry. I'm looking at this, I'm just looking at the 7 bridges and. When they were updated and. The fact that there was concern about Roach's Bridge and the speed of traffic on there. And I wonder if, going forward, it should be considered to, allow for a pedestrian lane on bridges if we are redoing them in the future and with that. And I'll wrap up this page, but.
Honestly, I was surprised if that's actually called out in P O C D. I think there was. You know, this is a planning guidance document. Getting into. The depth of. Pedestrian traffic across bridges. Yeah, know that. Do we see that as a concern, or do we want to maybe make that as a goal? We'll incorporate that.
So Nick, I gotta tell you, when you talk, please project across the room because.
Yeah, but that was more me talking to myself.
We talk. Okay, no. When you talk, if you could just, because I'm a little hard of hearing, so I'm right next to you. We can all project a little bit, I can understand what people are saying, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, we can turn that into a goal or goal, I think, for pedestrian access across bridges. Might word that into one of these existing points here. Anything else? The hope is that this is going to be something that when they bring us up for the transportation section, I guess they'll open that in January, I think is, because it's like the very last chapter that they go over. We'll hand them this and say, incorporate this into the chapter, and then we can see the draft and comment on it from there. So this isn't the last say we will have on our input into the POCD, so. There is nothing else. Then we'll move on to the next item. Communication, education. Sherry, I know you had some notes on that, on this sheet you brought in, if there was anything particular you wanted to highlight from.
The educational aspect.
Yeah.
Of that.
Yep.
So some of the things I was thinking about, were some of the problem areas that we had talked about last time, and the pros and cons to those. But when I was doing that, I also thought about how we were trying to come up with different thoughtful educational information that the town may or may not be aware of. And, one of them was that back to the speeding tickets, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that we do that. It depends on what was decided, but one thing that I don't know if town members town residents understand that when they're ticketed by the trooper, it's going to the state. And when they're ticketed by an automated ticketing system, that money goes back to the town. Personally, I would like to have my money go to the town rather than the state if I were given a ticket. That's just one thing people may not know, that I learned from being here. Town residents may not know that speeding is primarily from town residents, we've talked about that. Residents may forget that pedestrians have the right of way, I think that commonly aren't expecting them on the roads, but there's nowhere else for them to be. And may not know that providing 3 feet of space is in fact the law, so those signage we're starting to see around, we could incorporate that, and we do have some of those. Non-residents may not be aware that there's a school zone on Route 66. I don't think there's a sign saying that it's a school zone per se, and maybe it's not because the school's set back, but when you're coming up that hill, and we've had speeding problems coming up that hill, the fire department's across the street from the school. People just may not be aware that it's
I had a question about that. Is that actually a legal school zone per Connecticut statute? It actually is, and we don't have a sign?
Believe there's a sign when you come up the hill.
It's also a school zone.
It says schools on ahead, believe,
Oh, okay.
but we can definitely look at it.
I'm going the other way. Same thing.
We've asked the state road, we've asked the state to put a light there, a flashing light, and they have denied it numerous times. So we have tried, as we go through some of these things, we have tried many of these things and we have been denied, so.
Is there a marked crosswalk there?
There is, and they just put up new signs for that crosswalk. The state went through and updated all crosswalk signs on their roads, because I watched them do it.
There's a crosswalk sign, what, across 66 or across?
No, there's-
Road.
It's right next to Schoolhouse Road, there's a crosswalk sign right there.
Going where?
You face it coming up the hill.
A crosswalk for where?
For that crosswalk that's between the firehouse and Schoolhouse
We
Road.
have a crosswalk there?
Yeah,
Why?
because there's always, because it's been there for, the fire department needs it. It's been there for a long time.
Okay,
Never actually seen
we
it.
need it on the 4th of July,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's it, and we have trucks and troopers there for the 4th of July, but it's not a high foot traffic area, nobody lives on that side. And everybody takes a bus or their mom or dad picks them up in the school, so we have. If we have any children in the town of Columbia that walk to school, it's the option. It's not the norm, every kid in town has transportation to the school, I believe.
yes.
You know, it's not like the days of walking a mile, you know. Listen, there used to be the school, would put out transportation, and everything, if you lived within X amount of distance of the school, you booked it. Now, everybody's picked up at their door if they choose to be. That's all, so the crosswalk there,
I don't know why it's there, I really don't.
no, I don't either, truthfully.
I
Yeah.
have tried to use it and had difficulty even with a vest on and in the crosswalk,
Where were you going? I'm just asking,
just crossing the street. Traveling.
just to,
I can imagine if the crosswalk
just
is
to get to the other side.
rarely used, people aren't used to seeing people in it, they're just gonna completely
Yeah,
disregard it.
we've asked for a caution sign there, blinking caution sign, and we've been denied from the state numerous times, so.
And if you were there back when the old firehouse was on the other side of the street, the blinking light was there, put back in for the fire department. It was for the fire department. We had control of it to make it red. So we could back the trucks into the front of the firehouse, but when we moved, it came down. It only was allowed to be there when we were there, but it had no control of the Schoolhouse Road at all.
We will try again, because honestly, I see a flashing yellow, I slow down. About the cameras and stuff, the cameras truthfully would be on the major roads. 87, 66, that type of thing, because people coming through the center of town, I see them coming through over that hill 40 miles an hour to 25 mile an hour. 40 is their being nice. And about the money and everything, the state's not giving up any money from the state trooper residence program. When they write the tickets, they get the money. We get like 3 cents. So,
We'll talk more about those in the
Yeah.
next section here, but I want Sherry to finish off. She wanted to.
Residents are concerned about the mumble strips, if as a potential solution to that. S-curve problem, and, what I didn't realize was that the mumble strips are only on the yellow line when you veer out of the road. They don't go all the way across the road, so it's not like they're gonna be hearing people all the time. And the mumble strips are quieter than the old style, rumble strips, but I also included on the back, and I'm not gonna read all of that, but, what the Connecticut Department of Transportation talked about the use of the mumble strips and what they've done with them. But I didn't know it was just on the yellow strip, so it only will make a noise if somebody crosses the line.
Do we not do shoulder rumble strips in Connecticut?
I don't know if that's an option, to be honest with you, when, what's that?
Only on the highways, only in the interstates.
And that's the S turn down there. It's probably on the sides that would be more of the mumble strips, because we don't have a lot of accidents, people hitting each other head to head. We have a lot where they're going right off the S curve, and, you know, we're pulling them out of fire trucks and this, and so. It's, but. Maybe some of them are across that. And they're
On the S curves,
corrected.
I'm just gonna step in here, on the S curves on 87, been to plenty of them, they're not town residents, they're all out of town, and they're all speeding. So, been to majority of them, haven't missed many down there, and they're not town residents. They're either coming down the hill too fast, they lose their vehicle, or they're coming from the center of town, going too quick into the curve, and off the road they go. So your mumble strips are not gonna save them in any way. You can't straighten it out because the dam is right there. It comes down to, I've said it a few times, this committee was put together for speed enforcement because people were complaining they don't want the cameras. We have to make decisions here. We have to send out a PSA to the town, telling our members, our townspeople to slow down. Instead of going to Facebook and ranting about it, go to Facebook and tell your neighbors and your townspeople to slow down in town. We can't slow down people from out of town, and that'd be no different than us going into their town and speeding. It's a national thing. Speeding is national. It's not going to stop no matter what this committee does. You could put rumble strips, you could do whatever you want. It's not gonna stop. Go back to when you were all a kid. You sped. Don't tell me you didn't. Everyone did. You were learning how to drive. You were learning it. These are great ideas. But until you go out and stand in traffic at an auto accident, you fully understand, you know, you gotta have your head on straight, because when you put yourself out there, people don't care about you. They don't care. Look at the cops getting hit with their lights on, okay? Distracted driving. So it's not in the little town of Columbia, it's across the US and probably around the world. I don't know how you're gonna fix it, but doing the traffic cameras, I'm all for it, put them up, collect the money. But we have to decide, I just read town residents voting against it, okay, then don't complain about speeding. You have your choices here, you want the cameras? Here's the outcome. But the person in the town hall is going to have to be prepared to be that bad person to say, hey, you were caught on camera, your license plate, and I understand your story, and I'm really sorry about that, that's not right. But your license plate was caught on camera. Vehicle stolen or not, it's your license plate, it was caught on camera, it was speeding through town.
I'm gonna, if your vehicle's stolen and it's a speed camera, there's a box to check that. Here's mine.
So what I'm saying is we have to make steps to move forward here. Have we even sent out an address to the townspeople yet? We've met multiple times and we've talked about this.
That was gonna be my question, is we put together a letter for the newsletter, is that in the current one or scheduled to go into the next?
Okay, great.
So yeah, we're still collecting data, figuring out what the problems are, where they are, and then we need to start discussing solutions, which we're going to get into today, for sure. But I wanna keep us moving along. Anything else, for the communication, education section?
I didn't print these out,
Yeah.
I just did, but it was in the packet, I don't know if you guys want to talk about it.
Wait.
When you want.
Yeah, very fun.
Looks like there might be.
Oh, that's me, sorry.
Okay.
I think it's, time too. New business, state trooper report, we got some very basic traffic stats for November here. I don't know if I'm happy to see non-residents are getting stopped more than residents now, because I know it had originally been reported anecdotally that it was the reverse.
I think we were probably guessing at that, however. I asked the state trooper to give me specific numbers, on residents and non-residents. Like the chief says, people complain about speeding out there, and yet. Young lady was telling us how she got a $50 ticket in the mail, and it was her, she said, I didn't, but 11 in 1 month, 11 residents were caught by the state trooper and ticketed. Yes, the money went to the state, but it's good, 11 residents. I'm sure if you ask them, are you concerned about speeding, town? Absolutely. But not me, though, I'm a better driver than that type of thing, that's the way we think, we always are. I will tell you another thing. About the cameras, and I know this. But I didn't wanna get, I slow down anyway, because I know what's going on out here. But the last week, I was going to Paul and Sandy's down in East Hampton. And man, I was like this, my wife says, what's your problem? I go, there's a camera here somewhere, I know there is, I just know there is. And I was doing 5 over the speed limit. But it was a deterrent. It was a deterrent, so it's not an end all, but I'm happy to see that the resident trooper is able to get us this report, because I'll be going out on Facebook saying about the committee, I'll talk a little bit about it, and I'll say. However, look at your neighbors, look at yourselves, first of all, look at yourselves, are you sometimes going a little too fast? So I'm glad to see this, that we have some information, and he's gonna be putting this together every month.
I am very interested about traffic accidents 10. And I probably want to know where these are happening, even if they are minor or no injury. 'Cause
All over town. No particular spot, no particular area, they're all over town.
were these all 10 responded to?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep,
so there may very well be more like minor fender benders that we don't even.
correct, and those happen all the time, usually at intersections.
Usually at the transfer station.
Yeah, they had one there the other day.
Yeah.
People not paying attention when someone's turning, we had 2 of them on 66. We actually had 2 of them on 87 that should have been, severe. But people with these cars nowadays walked away with them with, basically no injuries. One was a rollover going into the first corner. So as you know, 87 into the stretch, you have that first corner, it's kind of a long sweeping curve, and then you have another one that comes back into Whitney. They were both right there, one of them rolled it. He was minor, and then the other one, he launched it up into the woman's front lawn.
Approximately what percentage of these would you say are speeding related?
Every one of them.
Very.
And they were not town residents. Most of them, all the ones that we responded to were not town residents. So.
Anything else on the trooper report?
Just one thing, we had a class with the commandant of the state police, and he was there, they're putting out a new report for the towns to be able to look at, and right now we get. Just the results of with a ton of stuff that means absolutely nothing to us, it's the print is. So they're fixing it, should be out any time now, has good reports on it, and hopefully we'll be able to get you some more stats. For our town anyway, and all over the state, to be honest with you, but I'm really concerned about our town. That's it.
Right, discussion of potential solutions and countermeasures. We've all seen this sheet before. I made an edit to it to highlight the ones that feel like they would be potentially best suited for Columbia, but I might have missed something. Some of them either don't apply or would be prohibitively expensive or don't necessarily address a problem that you're aware of. Who knows, but I wanted to go over those real quick, saving the very first one listed on this sheet for the very last, because that's probably going to be a lengthier discussion. Under speed management, again, ignoring the first one for the moment, we'll come back to it. Appropriate speed limits for all road users. It's pretty straightforward. Nothing Roadway departure, pretty much all of these are something that we can do. I know wider edge lines are in the latest version of the MUTCD, and Connecticut is starting to roll those out. They are demonstrated to actually make roads safer. They have statistics to back that up, so if we see an area that needs to be addressed with wider edge lines sooner rather than later, we can certainly do that.
I have a question about that. Beth, can you talk to your counterpart in Hebron? Because I know they have the new wide lane strips on the side. It didn't reduce the road at all, or it didn't widen the road at all, either one. But it kind of choked the traffic into tighter lanes there. Can you reach out and see what their thought of the effectiveness of what's going on with that? Because the question is, when you brought up bridges and everything, for Columbia to Span Bridge that have walkways there, you're talking major amounts of engineering and a lot of investment. Now, you say, well, the citizens are worth it. Yes, we are, to an extent. We have a lot of greenways and walkways and trails and everything. We have a lot of open spaces. People can walk, rec park, they can farm, the greenways, the railways, everything. They're 5 minutes away, get in your car, drive down to a parking lot, get out, you can walk through the woods. The big thing you're gonna have is a deer speeding by and bumps you with its ass end. I gotta be honest with you, they're very safe. They're very safe. They're cleaned up for the most part. 99% of them are wide. It's flat. I used to ride them, they were like this. I used to run and now they're just absolutely fantastic. Go down there, but if we can do maybe a smaller strip like this to choke the road a little bit, so traffic's a little bit slower and it provides a small walkway for pedestrians or bikers, I would like some information on that. If we can do it in our town, some, not every road, but some roads like Pine Street, Lake, whatever. I'm just throwing them out there. You can get some information on that.
Yeah, we don't have the width on local roads to
Right.
do that significant of a choking.
I do have some information.
You're just.
Okay,
So the one thing I will note is those markings, I don't know where they got the idea to do that from. It's not really a MUTCD thing that's called out. It's something they seem to be trying in a few places. I don't know.
I called about it, so I was curious what they meant, the white lines, and I was told that going forward, any state roads that are wide enough will have that. It's just part of what they're doing now. That's what I was told. So I don't know. It stops where they stopped doing the improvements on Hebron.
Hebron has some concrete data saying, hey, we're seeing fewer accidents along these roadways. Great, but I've seen nothing to support them other than the idea that they probably should work because they are technically dieting the road.
Okay.
Continuing right along, enhanced delineation for horizontal curves. They've fancy names, basically putting signs to say, hey, you're on a curve, be careful. Right below that, I'm gonna skip around for a second, roadway design improvements at curbs, guardrails, things like that. Make sure people don't go too far off the road when they go off the road. Longitudinal rumble strips and stripes on 2-lane roads. These, I think they're actually talking about shoulder rumble strips, which I guess we don't do in Connecticut for some reason. Who knows? I don't know if anything's necessarily stopping us from doing that on local roads, if there was ever a concern about that. But I would rather a rumble strip sound if my car is about to go off the side of a road than the sound of my car going off the road into a tree. So. Safety edge is this thing that they're doing on roads now, and they're resurfacing them to basically graduate the slope. So that if your car does start to go off the side of the road, you can bring it back onto the road a little easier. The figure.
I'm not sure. Agreeing with that, most of the time shoot you across to the other lane.
Under intersections, some of these didn't necessarily apply to us. I looked at the back plates, which with retro-reflective borders for traffic lights. I haven't really seen many of those in Connecticut at all, so I didn't highlight that one. Dedicated left and right turn lanes at intersections, boy, would that be great. I mean, I think there's better solutions, but I'll take what I can get. Systemic application of multiple low-cost countermeasures and stop control intersections. This is basically saying, put warnings about intersections before you get there, so it's not just, oh, suddenly a stop sign. They'll say, hey, there's a stop sign ahead, things like that. Roundabouts, everyone's favorite thing right up there with speed cameras. I don't know.
I think with roundabouts, we can take that off the town of Columbia's thought process. Every one of our is at a hill. And the only one you'd be looking at, you could possibly maybe do would be at 66 and 6. You can't do 87 and 66 because it comes up into a hill.
That isn't necessarily true anymore. They've started to put together design alternatives for roundabouts, taking into account hills. I don't think they've done them in Connecticut. Virginia's started to put a couple in, probably 10 years before it's something that pops into the MUTCD, but.
Right, but what I'm saying is those are state roads, and we are not going to be able to change the state of Connecticut's thought process. And that's at least 5 years out after they do the study and throw millions of dollars at it. So we need to find alternative solutions that we can work at now, and I think your dedicated left and right lanes, because you could do that at 66 and 87 for when you come up the hill and give people a turn signal to turn onto 87 to head north. They're giving it the turn signal to head south, but they don't do it to go north with an arrow. Down at 66 and 6, they could do a better job at giving you an arrow to go to Route 6 or 66 East, either way. I think that is a great way to go right at that and work with the state for that. But I think the roundabouts, we are not gonna change, we're not gonna be the first one for them to come after.
And I mean, I agree with you that we're not gonna see a roundabout in
No.
town for the next decades.
But I think the dedicated left and right lane, we could
Absolutely.
easily work at that and make an improvement there.
Tell you what, I'll cross it off now, but I'm gonna leave a note to myself to check back in like 2035. When we figure out how to do it.
I won't be in town until 2035, so.
Yeah, make sure you email me.
No, we'll be telepathically inspired rollers. Pedestrian bicycle lanes, wouldn't that be an interesting thing to have in town? Certainly, I think there are a couple of places they could go. Just gonna leave it at that for now. Jumping around for a second, walkways, aka sidewalks. Amazing concept. And then rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which if we're gonna get them to put anything at that crosswalk from the school to the firehouse, it might be one of those, because those seem to be the easiest thing to get towns and states and everyone else to actually install. They come in two flavors. Either you walk up to it, push a button, and it flashes the lights in both directions, or they'll automatically sense you coming and flash the lights.
Yeah, we have the newest ones down at the rail trails, across 87, and a couple of them are pretty good. You know, they let people know in driving. We have tried to get a flashing, I see some stop signs that have the lights on the outer edge. It's nice, it enhances the, stop here type of thing. We've asked for that on the curb down at the lake, and the state said no. So they put up bigger reflectors with the arrows. Hopefully it helps. Instead of 3 rollovers, we only had 2.
And the reason the state, and this is every state I've lived in, generally says no to those, is they don't like always on flashing lights. This is a on-demand flashing light. They seem to be more okay with that.
I'm sure they could put a sensor on there. My goodness, they put a sensor on a lot of things to warn you. My car warns me when I'm getting close to somebody in front of me. But I can't do a reverse on that, so if it sees a car coming, it starts to flash, hey, big turn up here, pay attention.
Those are more
Take a
expensive
look.
than you think. The
State's got a lot of
flashing,
money, I know, we'll take it from it.
the flashing beacon guys are actually pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Then cross-cutting pavement friction management, they have this whole new thing they can do to roads to make the friction a little better. I don't know if that's something Connecticut has just started doing, if they're doing it at all. But I will take better friction on the roads over not. I assume it's more expensive, so they don't necessarily do it everywhere, but if we see that there's a particular road people are sliding off of, that might be an option to look into. Lighting. There's lighting in a couple places in town, but there may be opportunities to introduce more lighting. Local road safety plan, it's kind of what we're doing now, but there's guidance out there for actually assembling documentation to guide how you handle all of these. And then road safety audit, the T2 center, they will come out and do those till you're blue in the face. They will come to a location, not on a state road, and say, here's everything we're seeing, here's some recommendations for making it better. So I think those are pretty useful. But yeah, these are the actual countermeasures that Federal Highway Administration has said. We've put them in place, we've used them for years, there's data supporting that they actually do this. They reduce fatalities 47% or accidents by 30% or something like that. You can go on their website, actually look at the data, the studies to support it. And I think these are the ones we can most readily, when we're looking at particular problems, point to and say, this is a proven countermeasure, let's try and do this. I think there are a couple of other items we can potentially put in our list of tools. I think communication and education in various forms, telling the town, hey, you're part of the speeding problem. That's a tool we can use. So, anything else before I launch into the one item on here that I actively ignored? Because I know it's going to be a bigger conversation.
Last time we met, it was brought up, what are some suggestions for things to do at Whitney Road, because it was, visibility problem for people turning from Whitney on to 87. And I just came with an idea for that, and some of the pros and the cons. One of the ideas was to clear more brush, but I did go over there and look at it, and the sharpness of the turn makes it hard for you to see well enough to turn as the traffic is coming on. And one thought I had was a four-way stop there, because there is Lakeview coming in, Whitney coming in, and 87. And I don't know if that's a potential solution. I mean, it is a potential solution. I don't know if it's something we would want, but it would also help slow people before they hit that S-curve area.
Well,
That
the
was
state
an idea.
allows to put
The state
stop.
will not use stop signs for speed control.
Right.
Here.
But it's not for speed controls, because there's two intersections coming together. That's what
But
I
I
think.
believe legally they have the sight line.
Yep.
Don't have it.
No, I believe there is sight line if you were,
So
it's just that people aren't going the speed limit. So you have the required sight line for 35 miles an hour, but that's not.
backing up a little bit, you're combining a problem and a solution. We should first focus on the problem, and then we can start potentially coming up with solutions for it. Which we're going to get to in one of the next sections. But real quick, as quick as it's going to be, we're going to talk about the very first item on proven safety countermeasures: speed safety cameras, automated traffic enforcement devices. I was asked the last meeting to put together as objective as I could be, pros and cons list, which is in your packet here. I listed all the pros, and I listed every con that's out there, whether it's an actual one or a perceived one. A lot of them are perceptions of issues, and I provided potential mitigations for those. I'm not saying there are not issues, and some of them are situational for certain roads, certain towns, but this is everything I've heard on one side or another. I did add an item that came up under net positive budgetary impacts, which is money from these goes to the town as opposed to the state. But please look these over, because we need to actually start having a discussion about whether automated traffic enforcement is something this town wants to start looking into as a tool that we use or not.
Is that really our discussion to have? Isn't that the select board's discussion to have?
You can discuss it all you like,
Well, yeah, we can discuss
and then
that,
it'll come to the board.
but
Ultimately, they would probably be looking for a recommendation in one way or another from us. We can either say, yes, we recommend them, no, we don't recommend them, or give no recommendation. And right now, we've done that.
I mean, people came to the board when we talked about putting the mumble strips around.
they were upset. I was at that.
Yeah, they were upset. And most of them lived across the lake and they feel the sound would travel across the water and disrupt their evening, everybody passing on the mumble strips. And afterwards, one of the selectmen said to me, this is one of the times where I think we need to do what's best for the people of the town and not listen to the 5 people who are concerned about the noise that they may hear without even fact finding on the noise of the mumble strip outside the vehicle versus inside versus the old rumble strips.
And do keep in mind, when you're talking about a solution at a location,
Right.
yes, that's going to tell people near that location, hey, if you don't like it, come out and oppose it. You're not going to get everyone else who's not there who will benefit from that improvement to come out and support.
Exactly.
So we have to take into account
I
people
listen.
who are not present as well as people who are present. Regardless, it's not like we're going to say, let's do speed cameras and they're going to be here tomorrow. There's a lengthy process
Tuesday.
with many. I got it, Steve. There's a lengthy process involving the Board of Selectmen, involving putting together a potential ordinance, and then there is a town meeting where literally anyone who wants to come in, fill Yeoman Hall to the brim will have to approve or not approve the ordinance. So just because we say it's something we are potentially in support of does not mean that it's going to become law. We will ultimately find out what the town thinks about it one way or another. And generally, I'm against taking something off the table without allowing either the Board of Selectmen and or the town to weigh in on it. We would simply be saying, if we're going to do it in town, this is how we would like to have it happen. Because what could happen is maybe the Board of Selectmen gets together and says, you know what, let's do them. We haven't heard from the Traffic and Transportation Committee, but we like the idea, so we're just gonna run with it. And then suddenly they're running with an idea that maybe we don't like. It is better if we come together and say, if you're going to pursue this, this is what it should look like in town. Give that to the Board of Selectmen and say, we have weighed in on this, we've done the research, we've done the legwork, so you don't have to. If you're going to do this and you want support from the town on it, this is the right way to do it, based on how other towns have done it, how it's been done in other states for 20+ years. Or maybe we come back and say, we don't think it is an appropriate fit for Columbia, and this is why. But I think this is something we need to start discussing. If we have concerns about it, we should discuss those concerns, have them on the record, and go from there. So
I mean, we've discussed it at every single meeting, and what we haven't discussed in depth is all of these things, you just read them to us, but there's been almost minimal discussion on things we could do quickly that may improve the situation and would impact what people end up deciding on cameras, and if there's
so we
should
did
discuss some of them and see where we land.
So we started discussing options we have available just now, countermeasures. These are things we can potentially do. Whether they're quick or not is a different story. Another I totally missed it when we were talking communication, education, traffic enforcement by our troopers is certainly another thing that we can deploy fairly quickly to address certain concerns for a certain period. Go ahead.
So real quick,
Yeah.
traffic cameras I'm in favor of, proven track record that it slows people down. All for it. Con is who's dealing with it back here. And that's, that's a separate person to deal with that. All these lovely things that we see on this are not gonna work on state roads because we can't control that. We have to bring the state in and we have to work. So what can we control? What can we control as a group? Back roads to town of Columbia are too small. They're not wide enough. So you're not gonna put rumble strips on the side of Lake Road. Because the road's not wide enough when you have a dump truck in a car or a pickup coming at each other. You're not putting roundabouts on the back roads. There's no place to put bike lanes. So what can we control? If we put the cameras up, that gets our resident trooper onto the back roads more. So he's got to try to balance two things. We're not getting another resident trooper into the town of Columbia. So that's 180,000 plus off the table, that's off the table. What can we control? Let's get the cameras up. They've already put the speed flashing cameras up, there's 4 of them up, they're moving them around to get people to slow down. Those are things we can control where people are complaining on the back roads. The resident is proving that if you were to ask him, which I have, where is most of his stops coming? They're on the main roads. He's getting those people on the main roads, he's gotten a few on the back roads, but it's the main roads. So we get the cameras up, that takes care of the main roads, he can get to the back roads for us. Right?
Correct. Yeah, I will note that most of the solutions on this countermeasure list are either long-term or expensive or both, or we need to work with the state to implement. Doesn't mean we can't do those, they're definitely gonna be longer-term things, but there are shorter-term things that we can do. Biggest things we can do in the short term, communication, education, working with our trooper on enforcement. Simpler to deploy tools, the speed readout signs, things like that. As we're gonna get into our first packet of reported problems in a little bit here. Those are tools we can certainly keep in mind. But if we're going to have automated traffic enforcement in our tool belt, we need to start the process sooner rather than later, because it will take the better part of a year to go through the process of making that happen. Thoughts? I'm not gonna monopolize the floor on this unless I need to.
I'm in favor of the cameras on the state roads. I think we just have to be specific on where we locate them. Because you're only gonna slow the traffic. People are gonna know that the camera is here and slow on either side of it. So put it in the areas where there's known fatalities or crashes, because ultimately, yes, speeding's bad. But if people speed and it's safe, then you're not gonna stop it. But where an accident is occurring, that's where you wanna slow them down or in front of a school.
And before we can get the state to approve them, we do have to be very specific about where we want to put them. It's not like we can just wake up tomorrow and say, okay, we're approved for speed cameras, let's put one over there. No, every single one, we have to go to the state and say, mother, may I, if we're gonna put it on a state road. If we're gonna put it on a local road, we still have to go to the state.
So I've been to 3 meetings. I've looked into these. I actually wanted to be the first time to have them 9 months ago. I brought them up to the board. So the bottom line is, ask questions and I'll give you specific answers to what I know, what I don't know. I'm not gonna BS you, but ask questions about what your concerns are. I heard your concerns, I understand that. First of all, we don't have police department's gonna knock down your door because you're doing 48 in a 35.
Right, and that's why I said extreme,
Extreme, absolutely.
but it still happened.
Yes, now, I have gotten tickets in Washington DC because that was my license plate. If it was foggy or if it couldn't be read, I would not have got a ticket, or I would have fought. Everybody will be getting, hey, this is your car, and if you weren't driving, get the $50 from the person you gave your card to. Same thing with that. Now, initially, I will be looking at all the voters that are coming in. There are 6 criteria on how they can say, I don't deserve this ticket. Emergency vehicles. Stolen vehicles, there's 6
Simple common sense reasons.
And as the judge of that, because I have to look at it and go, okay, that's viable, we waive that one. Not viable, boom, you didn't meet the criteria of these six items that allow you to say, I know I was speeding, but this is why. You didn't meet that, I had to pick up my child from school, sorry, boom, boom, boom. It's well spelled out on how you can say, I don't believe I have to pay the fine.
And how will we deal with, I wasn't driving the car?
So,
Find out who was driving.
let me clarify that. So, this is not a ticket in the traditional sense. It is a civil citation against the owner of the car for allowing their car to be operated in an unsafe manner. If you are not the one who's driving the car, you still allowed someone to operate your vehicle in an unsafe manner. If your car was stolen, that's a different story. You have a police report, you turn it in with a ticket, say, my car was stolen, not me.
It's the same way as a rental company or anybody else owns their car. They don't, the bottom line is trust the people you give your car.
Right. Don't give it to your teenager if they're going to go 90 through 66 in the middle of town.
So, other things, The money, yes, it would be collected by the town. The company the town does not pay for the speed cameras, they get their portion to pay for the manufacture of the speed cameras and stuff, and to keep the upkeep on them, do the synchronization of them. They get their piece out of the money that is collected.
Specifically an administrative fee that's on each
Administrative
ticket,
fee.
so it's
All right.
either 50 or 75, and then there's like $15 for the
Yes.
administrative fee.
So the other thing is that the money can only be used for enhancement to deterrent to speeding. That could be other cameras, but you could put a camera on Lake Road, or you could put one on Whitney Road, where people will just fly through there because it's a cut through. Maybe not to the tune of $2,000 a month or anything, but if you slow people down on the S curve or on Whitney Road because there's a camera there and it doesn't produce a lot, there's two things. That's a good thing because people slow down. And the company's not making any money, but the bottom line is, it's not all about making money. For the town of Columbia, it's about slowing people down. Now, will we use the money? Absolutely. We'll use you can use it for enhanced trooper. We could get a second trooper to help patrol the back roads. If the income from the cameras produced enough to help cover that. Also, the money can be used for roads and infrastructure.
Right, so you're talking about using it for data, right? Which is, I'm okay with,
For what?
for data.
No,
Well, you could use it to widen a narrow road or.
correct.
improve
We
it
can use it to
line with
repair a bridge.
Which I'm not opposed to.
Right. It's not how the town's not getting rich off. it.
Right.
The town is doing improvements to the roads to make them safer by keeping people traveling and.
So there's law factor.
100%. And one of the things that I would absolutely insist upon is that if we approve these, this committee would very closely monitor the funds coming in revenue and what exactly it is laid out on. And we would very transparently report to the town. This is where this citation money is being spent. These are the improvements that are being made by this.
And the state is all over this.
Yes.
Because Middletown has brought in about $1 million.
In 3
They
months.
want. The state is all over, where are you spending the money, because this is not a money grab, it has to be for improvements to deter speeding and to make the roads safer. So. If they find it's just, excess money and it's going to. Things that's not supposed to, the state is gonna put clamp down on it.
Oh, yeah, Connecticut hates excess.
I was gonna say it's.
No, they like our excess money, but they hate us getting.
I mean, this is another fear. It's another.
Once it goes to the states.
By another name.
It's an optional tax. You don't have to pay it.
That's right, here's another option, you could do the speed limit,
I mean, I work from home, it's not gonna
I
affect,
understand.
however,
People say to me, oh my goodness, the time. Do the speed limit. And you can set them for 10 miles over.
You can't set them lower than that. You have to be at least in excess of 10 miles above the speed limit.
And it could be 15.
Yeah.
You could set them how you feel necessary, but to be honest with you. If they're doing, the curve down there is 25 and they're doing 40. And they have to pay a $50 ticket, it's a lot cheaper than going through the guardrail and rolling it over. And in the last 2-3 years, we've had probably 3 rollovers or at least 2 car fires. So it's a bad spot. So I understand. And when I got my ticket from DC, I said, were you driving? To my wife? She goes, yeah, I don't drive down there, you know that, I know, so it was me, I paid the ticket. Lady sat here, said, yeah, I opened it up, I was rolling through East Hampton at that time, okay, I got a $50 ticket. So, and honestly, I'm gonna be the guy at the end of the computer, because I know the 6 criteria, you're gonna be right there, if you don't meet it, boom. You wanna take it to court after that? The $50 you would pay, it's a lot less than the attorney's fee. It doesn't go against your motor vehicle, it doesn't go against your insurance. And if you don't pay it, the company puts it on a credit, or they get somebody to go after it. That's not even our responsibility.
Kristen, do you have any concerns about these devices that are not spelled out on this sheet here?
Yeah, I have lots of.
Can we go over those? I would like to discuss them.
I'm just curious the cost benefit analysis that's been done for the expert employees that are gonna have to be hired to process thousands of these that come in a month. Cause I mean, realistically, you're not gonna be processing all of these.
They're automatically processed. I get a list.
You have to
goes
keep them.
through-
So,
Someone in the town has to keep them.
I can-
It's like spring.
Right,
so every town so far that's had these come in, they've had a surge at the beginning. They've had to temporarily retask other people to review these, and then it simmers, they get used to the process, they're able to do it a lot faster. We can learn a lot of lessons from how other towns have done these. It would be at least a year before we'd be able to do this in town. We'll have a lot more opportunity to learn other lessons. Every town that has had to adapt to this, the revenue they've gotten is many times greater than any amount of overtime they've had to pay.
so they've been
Didn't
able
answer
to
my
hire
question,
someone.
is what's the amount? That, like, you're saying we get $50, if you're then turning around and paying someone $20 an hour to process these, how many can they process in an hour?
Takes about
I don't
30
know,
seconds
you
to
know what
process.
it is? People slowing down. I understand what you're saying, I do. If we have so many through the town of Columbia, I have to have a room of 3 people going through these things.
What
We
is
got
that?
3 or 5.
The cost is for whatever the hourly overtime rate would be for an employee, they can process about $6,000 of citations per hour. I don't think anyone's making that much overtime here. If you are, please let me know. I think
Yeah, do.
I mean, I think there are departments that would be willing to,
So
that's gonna save.
we'll have to work
Not
that
only
out,
class
but
work.
like Nick said,
Just
if towns were going in the red because of this, they would not continue to keep doing them. They would be throwing up their hands and saying,
there has
we
to,
lost money on this. And
we
nobody's-
we have to find a different solution to the company that puts out these cameras. Because they're in business to make money, there's no doubt about it. Everybody in business is in business to make money.
But
So
they're,
they will continue to refine the process. So it makes it easy for the town municipalities to be able to go through these. Connecticut is not their first day, they've been out there a long time. That's why they've been able to have 6 criteria that give you an out on why you were speeding through that zone. And it's gone through the courts and everything.
merely suggesting that we might wanna slow our roll because we tend this town to jump in feet first, spend a lot of money, and then like, oops, we didn't quite know, like, we saw it on the HVAC project.
Okay, that's one.
I'm just saying, like,
Big
it
one.
might be better to have all the information before we go putting these things up and then going, oh.
But we do have the information.
we do.
People are complaining. This is why this committee is here. It's why we're sitting in this room, because people are complaining of the speeding in the town of Columbia. I've read it, I've seen it. This is a known deterrent to the problem that people are saying is a safety issue. I can tell you from personally, chief of the fire department.
I'm
People, hold on a second, hold on, Nick. Hold on.
No, I'm gonna, as a chair, I'm gonna pull it back, because we can talk about the needs of this and so forth, but I want to answer your specific question, which is cost benefit analysis. An employee working overtime at whatever the rate is can review $6,000 worth of citations in an hour. I think that more than covers any concern for, are we gonna lose money on this? Absolutely not, and as we get used to the process and we streamline it, just as every town has started to do that has had these in operation for 3-6 months, it will more than cover itself. When we start to put together a plan for this, which we would need to submit a plan to the state saying, how are we gonna handle this? This is part of what is going to go into that plan, so we're not gonna jump past the point of looking at what is it going to cost in terms, do we have the administrative support to process these? That's part of what has to go into that plan, so just because we say, yes, let's start looking into these, doesn't mean we're going to ignore that kind of thing. We absolutely have to look into that when we put together the plan that we would have to submit to the state to get their approval to operate these cameras in Columbia.
Question,
Yes.
these companies who sell this product, how much of that, I would assume they do some help on that process.
Yeah, so that what they do is they try to make it as efficient for towns as possible. So citation comes in, they catalog them. What they give to the town is basically a web portal that says, here's a citation, here's the image of the vehicle, the license plate number, look at it. anything you see that makes this invalid, if yes, push this button, if no, push this button. It takes 30 seconds generously. I've done these before myself in a couple of towns. I can do them in about 10 seconds with 99.9% accuracy.
The webinar that was put out recently on these devices. They had people from each of these towns that were actually in the thick of it or had gone through it, talking about kind of the pros and cons. And I don't know if that information is still available or has been condensed somewhere. They did send out an email afterwards.
So what they sent, part of it's in here, and
Okay.
I sent this
I
back.
was just gonna say that might be a useful place for you to also look for more information, because they did talking specifically about that. What you're saying,
Some of the items I pulled.
like how they handled it and what were the good and bad things that happened.
Some of the items I pulled from here are from other states I've worked in to help with their automated traffic enforcement systems. So these are things we haven't necessarily seen in Connecticut, but I want to get ahead of any potential problems.
I have to jump out of another meeting. Can you do me a favor? Anybody has questions, just make sure you capture the questions, even if they're answered. I'd like to read them, and, you know, I can get 3 other towns to come in on a Zoom to answer some of the questions. I can also get the company to come in. Listen, whatever, I'm one vote in town, okay? There's an issue. That's why this committee's here. Hopefully, we can come up with something. But if the town says, hell no, we're not having any cameras, okay, I have just one vote on that. But I'll tell you, we're gonna be the only town in surrounding us who won't have the cameras.
You bring up an important point before you run. I want to mention this. There are 2 of our neighbors that are in the early stages of looking at implementing these systems as well. You're going to see them around here regardless, whether they're in Columbia or whether other towns get them up first and get the first revenue from people getting used to the idea in Eastern Connecticut. If we can be the first, it would be much more beneficial than that money going to other towns, I think.
And the discussion today, what we can do with the state and different roads and the local traffic authority. If we put all of those items down there, I believe between myself and Beth and the fire chief, we can answer them. It's a state road. We already have the left turn signals into the state to consider for us down at 6 and 66. Okay, this debacle out here, if we were able to widen the streets a little bit to have designated left turn, that one left turn, first of all, it's about 4 seconds long. And if the person in front of you is not taking a left turn, they're going straight, it means nothing to us. So we're looking at a lot of things, but widening out here to make designated left turns would actually be a solution to this area out here. But we're into the state already with a couple of different things. 66 and 6 is a big one. Hopefully we can do it. So thank you.
I want to ask Christian other concerns you have, and the reason I'm not picking on you, but I want to hear any concerns you have, because those are concerns we would potentially face in a town meeting setting, and we need to make sure we are prepared to address any concerns that are brought, and either say this is the reality of the situation, or yes, that is a genuine concern, and this is what we can do to mitigate it. So I want to make sure anything we potentially think of comes out. So.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I don't agree for a variety of reasons. I'm not gonna sit here and list every single one. There's a lot of people in town who don't agree with them.
I don't know.
We know we're gonna
engage-
face pushback.
Yeah.
Other towns have faced pushback, like you are clearly in support of them, and that is shown by the thing.
I am
you
open
agree.
to their implementation. In the past, I have been vehemently approving of them in certain towns. There are places that I don't think they're appropriate for. We're trying to figure out if they're appropriate for Columbia based solely on our environment, our situation, and the environment that Connecticut's state statutes have enabled us to either adopt or not these. So I want to make sure that every concern anyone has is out in the air before we make a decision about whether we as a committee want to support these and take the next steps into looking into how do we make them happen in Columbia.
What are the concerns
It's a camera that is going to take a picture of your license plate that is speeding. If you are not speeding, it is not stopping a shot of your license plate. You talk about Whitney Road. Route 87 by Whitney Road, perfect spot. Route 87 by the center of town, and Route 66 by Hunt Road. Fatalities at Hunt Road, where the state tried to mitigate, we still get an accident up there every now and then. Route 87 by the corner. They see, because you have to mark out so many feet out from the camera, you are gonna get them to slow down into the curve. So they're gonna slow down into the curve and they're not gonna pick up their speed by the time they make the next curve. Beautiful spot for it. We're talking about safety. As Steve just said, the first selectman just said, it's about the safety of our citizens. It's about the safety of the people on our roads. It doesn't need to make $1 million. It needs to save a life. A life is worth more than anything.
And they are a proven safety countermeasure, according to Federal Highway Administration. They have enormous volumes of data on their effectiveness that they've collected over 20+ years that shows they work, they make things safer, they reduce speeding, they reduce accidents. So I think there's definitely a big list of pros. The cons are the things that we want to make sure we are able to address. So if there are any open concerns by committee members that you would like us to talk about, I think we should do that now. Otherwise, I think we should actively consider taking the next step towards this is something we want to look into the steps of, do we make this happen in town? This is not to say check box, we're making them happen. There are so many steps that happen between now and then. And if any one of them says, no, we're not doing it, then they don't happen. Board of Selectmen, state approval, location studies, town meeting, any one of them come back and says these are not appropriate for the town, they don't happen. But if we look at these and say there are tons of pros, they will work for this town, we have either addressed or mitigated the concerns or we understand them, so be it. But we need to decide, I think, once and for all, because this keeps coming up at this meeting. We either need to say, yes, this is a tool we potentially want to begin the investigation of, or no, let's never talk about it again.
I think one of your problems you have, she's not gonna say yes, correct?
No.
So you're beating your head against the wall. She's gonna have her concerns and she's convinced. And I don't know other people's opinions, I'm not even saying what my opinion is right now, but I think you have to make a decision. Some people are gonna be unhappy and some people will like it. I mean, that's why we're all here, that's why hopefully we have a variety of people here who can come to some solution.
Yep.
But I mean, if you're just gonna sit here and say, I'm gonna try to convince Christian this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And what she said, I mean, maybe we'll get to a point where you'll say, okay, everybody's gonna do it, but can you do this? Which would be great.
I understand why people want them, I just don't agree personally, in my
That's
opinion, with giving up freedom for the illusion of safety, because the reality is people are gonna speed if they wanna speed, and they're
It's
gonna.
not an illusion, it was
Okay.
proven by.
And you can,
You just lost my vote. Because what you're saying is you want the freedom to speed.
no, I'm not saying that at all, I told you I
Okay,
work for.
I'm gonna call this to order,
Said that.
real
You
simple.
want to discuss it?
Guys, if you're talking out of order, I will take action. I don't put up with that on my committees. Thank you. Clearly, there's a lot of thoughts on this still. We've talked about it. If we have new discussions on this we wish to bring up, let's do it. Otherwise, what would be potentially the first step in this process? I know that in order, at the end of the day, we would need the Board of Selectmen to weigh in, we would need an actual town ordinance, we would need to find a vendor, we would need the state's approval for specific locations, and we would have a town meeting to say yes or no. What would be the logical first step that we would potentially support, other than just a general statement of, yes, this is something we want to look at in town, or no, this is not something we would look at?
Would the board have to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen?
I think that's what member of the selectmen. I think your charge is to make a recommendation based on this
Yes.
committee,
I agree.
what they think they should do.
Is that the Board of Selectmen actually gave it to this committee to make the recommendation, to look into it, to make the recommendation back, because they didn't vote on it. They wanted to hear it from us to move it forward to them, then to move it forward to the town.
Do
So I
we
think-
individually?
I think we give a true recommendation, X amount for it, X amount against it, and the Board of Selectmen makes the final call.
Okay, do we individually have the information we need to make our individual recommendations, whether that is a yes or a no? And if so, what would that recommendation potentially look like, especially if it was put forward into a motion, which is not something I'm going to put out there, but if someone else wants to, please do so.
You want a motion to move it forward to the Board of Selectmen?
It would probably be a recommendation to begin the process of,
I make a recommendation to begin the process of integrating automated traffic enforcement safety devices within the town of Columbia.
good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Cool, discussion.
I've already discussed how I felt about it. I told you 3 areas, which one of them is where you were talking about by Whitney Road. Another one was a hot spot by Hunt, and the other one that people talk about is the center of town. I gave you 3 areas right off the bat that I would say go for.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The one. All right. This is only a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to start a lengthy process. That's all it is. But it is also us saying we're not going to keep bringing this up at every meeting. Now, if this will come back to us for our input throughout the process, they're going to ask us, what should this look like? How do we implement this well? They're going to look to our experience in our various subject matter expert areas and say, how can we do this right? How can we do this better than every other town has done this so far? So we still have a very important role to play in this. This is not the last this is going to come up, but at the very least, the idea of this is now something that we as a board have, not unanimously, but have decided that we're going to recommend to the town to begin looking into.
And Nick, if I'm right, it will finally end up in the townspeople hand to vote for it.
Oh yeah, it is a town meeting.
Correct.
By state statute.
Correct.
So
So when the townspeople voted down, we can all stand up and say, and don't go to Facebook, don't tell your brothers and everyone else to talk about speeding. We're trying to mitigate it. If you don't wanna help the process, don't complain about it. Cause that's what it comes down to.
all right, I'm gonna move it along here. Correspondence. I sent in an article which was horrible to print out, so I didn't actually print it out. It's in the email that went out about roundabouts, but we decided that's not something we're gonna talk about for 10 years.
All they add about roundabout, at one point they did a Route 6 corridor improvement, and there was some preliminary designs for a roundabout at Route 66 and.
The latest on that, and this came up at the last planning and zoning meeting, is that the state has decided not to do that. They've potentially penciled in a big improvement to that intersection, and part of it is that they would reroute 6 coming from the direction of Coventry. They would reroute it slightly north so that the intersection better aligns, because right now the way the intersection comes in is gross. I hate it. It's terrible. When they do that realignment, it would potentially open some of that land to commercial development. They actually show this nice picture of like this mixed use, almost town center-ish looking thing. It's really nice. It's in the last planning and zoning commission meetings packet, something to definitely look into. But at this point, the state is saying, we're not going to put a roundabout there because in order for it to work, it would need to be a 2-lane roundabout. And Connecticut can't seem to handle 1-lane roundabouts, 2-lane roundabouts.
So they physically
are collected.
6 north.
Part of routes, they realign Route 6 to make it a little safer in terms of an intersection.
But when you say it'll open up development land, that mean opening up land this side of Route 6?
It's currently on the other side of Route 6 because they'd be shifting it north, and then there'd be a couple of shifts. And
So I'll have to look at it.
yeah, definitely look at it. I'm not gonna try and describe a
Yeah.
very nice picture. All right, roundabouts, they'd be great. They'd solve a lot of our problems. Not gonna happen in this decade. I'm sorry. So, East Haddam, this is an article from their local thing, which is many residents at hearing not in support of speeding cameras in town. I don't know how many is. I don't know if many were also in support. They didn't seem to actually take a poll. This was not actually their town meeting to approve or reject it. This was just, I think, an informational thing, was it? It was a public hearing. So just something we need to keep in mind. A lot of what you will see residents quoting is, this is another way to tax us. It's an optional tax. I don't care about how much safety they talk about. I don't care how much good they think it will do. I think people do care about safety and what it will do. It's just there's certain aspects of them that maybe they are not as informed about as they can be. So this is part of why I want to be the first town in Connecticut to actually do this process right. Because I followed every single town and process they've gone through. And a lot of them just, I honestly don't know how they actually got them approved. People just didn't show up to the meetings, but they did very little to educate people on pros, to educate people on concerns they might have, misinformation that's out there about these. I want to make sure that at the end of the day, everyone who approves these understands what that means, and everyone who's saying no to them, at the very least, is saying no as informed as they possibly can be. That's all I'm gonna ask.
Would we be looking at informational townwide meetings on this? Like we did a lot of the different, I've been involved with open space in town and a lot of issues. We don't have necessarily voting meetings, we have meetings. If you want to hear about what we're trying to do, Rec Park is a good example. We had all kinds of, before we voted on anything, we had different meetings and presentations of what could be done in Rec Park. And people became very aware of what was being done. I think eventually it's more a positive thing, but eventually it was approved, everybody was in favor. We had the votes, it was like 302 or something like that. So I don't know if there'd be like informational townwide meetings that we can plan in the future
I think
as
that'd
the
be
process goes.
A town meeting before the town meeting, just to gauge
Information.
people's concerns. Absolutely, I think that's something we should do. The first time we talk to the town should not be at the town meeting where they're saying yes or no. All right. Traffic and Transportation Committee Problem Report and Tracking Form. We're moving these out. So last time we put together a little form that we can use to identify problems and map them to potential solutions. And we've had a few of them come in. There are a few more problems that are kind of coming in. I know Sherry has noted a couple of them. I don't know if we want to take problems that committee members are self-reporting and turn them into potential problem reports. Honestly, I would rather have problems come in externally from us, so it doesn't look like we are coming up with our own problems to solve. And I feel like the problems, as soon as people are becoming aware that, hey, we are actually looking at these issues, they will start coming in. And that's what we want. We want people to emails us. I like emails because there's a paper trail that says this has come in. Calls are okay too, but when they come in, someone, you or Mark, is going to put together one of these little reports that captures that information, and then it's going to come to us and we're going to talk about it. What we can do about it, it really depends. But we have 3 of them that are in this packet here, and only the problem summary on them is filled out. I think in the future we can probably just do this page, not necessarily this back part here. I very quickly this morning started to throw together a spreadsheet that I can share with the committee members to keep track of these as they come in. I will send that out between now and the next meeting. I put these 3 in there. If we want to put any others in there, we can do that, but just something so we can keep track of them and say, hey, this issue is on our radar. This is where we are in the process of looking at it. We've done something about it, or we've decided this isn't something we can do something about, just so we don't lose any of these along the way.
All these are people speeding on local road, which is, I think everyone here will say that there's not a road in Columbia that people don't speed.
I'm gonna go share.
That's my observation.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I was thinking that we were gonna try to leave names off. Was that?
When I put them in the spreadsheet, I redacted the names. These are only coming to us.
Cause it seems like we don't need any.
If you want to keep the names separate from these, I don't know how easy it would be to keep those I don't think we particularly need names and phone numbers in these.
Yeah, it's just that. All these folks that have called in or stopped in, they are expecting a response.
Right.
So I need to have their names, their address and their phone number, so.
I think you can keep that in the
Yeah.
office, not necessarily something we
Right.
need to see as part of this, if that doesn't make things too complicated.
No.
Okay, cool.
So I think the request of rumple strips on Garland, that's typically used for road departures.
Great, I wanna
Okay.
bring up that particular issue,
You
so.
could tell her right away it's not appropriate.
So here's the whole thing, this is not a problem, this is a solution. The problem is it speeding, people going off the road? Do you know if that was, if there was actual concern associated with the rumble strips, or is it just they came in with a solution
They came in, that was what they felt would work because of the.
to
speed.
solve, because of speeding?
Yes.
Okay, so this is speeding along Golden Road, which the second issue in here is speeding along Golden Road, so. We have a problem, we I think, two problems here. In the spreadsheet I put together, they're spelled out as three, because every single one of these that's come in, we're gonna call it a problem until it is dispositioned. First one, speeding along Whitney Road, second one, speeding along Golden Road. Third one is a solution that I would say we look back at the second problem, so. In the spreadsheet I'm gonna send out, I would actually say this issue maps to the second one in here, it's not a new problem. So these are really the same problem. One is really a solution, pretending it's a problem. But we have two problems, they've been brought to us formally, and we have the processes in place and potential countermeasures to address them. So I'm happy to hear from committee members who wish to say, this is something we should do about this. And again, we've got these things here, we have communication education, we have trooper enforcement. Or we decide this isn't something we wanna do anything about, but we should disposition them one way or another.
So real quick, the first one, he talks about the flashing speed signs it's in an area that's going in shade, let's relocate the speed sign. To a better area along that road, that stays lit all the time, and for Ballin Road, put a speed camera there. And, you know, there's not much more we're gonna do unless we're gonna put a trooper on that road 24/7. There's nothing, we're not gonna put rumble strips down that road, down the middle, cause that's not gonna stop the speeding, they're speeding in their lane of traffic or travel. And we're not gonna put in speed bumps down Ballin Road. That's not gonna happen. Cause Beth, would you see that as a viable solution?
No.
Right,
I am so against speed bumps.
right, I am too. So. I think we put a speed sign there and, you know, maybe some things we need to ask these people that are complaining about it is. What time of day is it? Get us a better idea, you don't have to make it public. But then the trooper can possibly be around that same time if they're seeing it around a certain area, but. If it's just they're speeding on my road, okay, but they're speeding on every road in town. At some time during the day, with the amount of traffic on all of our roads. More than one person is speeding and a cop can't be everywhere. Our resident trooper sat in our first meeting, goes, you guys would like, I'll get a hold of the troop and we'll bring in 15 cops. And we'll flood this town, you won't be happy with us. Because the first thing he said, that they're gonna hit Facebook, cops were all over the town of Columbia, what's going on? So.
Alright. I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna try and process that into actual items here, 1 second. So for the Whitney Road, I have, can we relocate the speed readout sign somewhere with a little more sunshine so it operates? Have you heard about the concerns about the sign not working?
Well, I drive it every day. There may be if one day if it's really overcast, it won't read, but 90% of the time it's working.
Okay.
I went by it twice, once it was working, once it wasn't. But it is at the very end of the road, I mean, maybe we can move it.
What's the sun exposure like there? Are there trees in the way or is it full sun?
There's other areas that are sunnier.
Can
We saw it as going down that hill to
Slow them down.
to slow them down. Cause that's where they pick up their speed coming down the hills.
Yeah.
Okay, so we
So,
probably prefer to leave
If
them
we
in place.
put it further up, they'll be speeding by the time they get to the hill where.
Could it be moved just a little bit up where maybe there's a little more light on it and it's still kind of near the same area?
We can try, the one on Cards Mill. Works less than the one on Whitney and it's in full sun, so.
Oh,
I don't
So-
know what I don't know what the issues are, I don't know that it's sun related.
So I'll make a note, we should continue to monitor the efficacy of those speed readout signs. If we're concerned that they are non-functional more than they are functional, maybe we need to revisit them, either their location or whether we're using them at all. I don't want to create the perception that we have a tool out there to address this that isn't working. So, I think we can certainly request additional trooper enforcement, and certainly the more reports we get for a particular area, I think the more inclined our troopers are going to be to patrol that area. So I think we can formally say as a committee, hey, here's the problem, it's being reported. Please make sure this is one of the areas that you hit. And then the idea that speed cameras along Whitney Road, that's something we would consider? Don't know. That's far off, that's a long-term solution, if it's a solution at all. Anything else we can do about the Whitney Road situation? Yeah, I think that's basically what we have in our toolkit. I think automated traffic enforcement is another potential tool that would help with that. But otherwise, these are continuing issues, and I would argue that one of the other solutions is more communication and education of the town. Say, if you're speeding on Whitney Road and you're complaining about speeders on Whitney Road, maybe you are part of the problem. We've started to put together campaigns to educate people on that, and I think this is gonna be one of the many items we leave open for an extended period of time. Continue to watch and see if speed readout signs are effective, see if trooper enforcement is effective. And then maybe one day automated traffic enforcement would be effective. Garland Road, I think similar situation. I do think we should try and get details when people are reporting speeding issues about day of the week, time of day. That's definitely something I want to see for each one of these, because maybe there's a particular time of day and it's every week at that time of day. If so, we can give that to our trooper and say, please be here this day, this time, and get tickets.
Garland Road doesn't seem like it's a cut through road, it takes you from Willimantic to Johnson. Be the back way into Lebanon, Whitney Road gets you from 6 to 87.
Go ahead, Christian.
If you look at the data from the strips we had in town, all of these issues are occurring basically when people are going to work and dropping their kids off, and when they're coming home and dropping their kids off.
Right.
Like we know what times of day it is for most of these roads, because it's when people are traveling on them. Which for the most part is, you know, your people going to work between 6 and 9, and your people coming home between 4 and 6.
That'd be town residents.
Mostly
So
on
we're
these
come
back
back
roads.
to the audience this time. So, yeah, town residents, I agree. If it's happening during commuting hours on roads that aren't necessarily connections between arterials, that sounds like it's a local problem. And I think our biggest tool we can use is education and communication with the town and say, hey, you guys are part of the problem. And this is going to come up a lot as we look into automated traffic enforcement and say, we might not be having this discussion if Columbia residents weren't contributing to speeding problems in town.
I know that the resident state trooper is looking into the rural road grant, which allows additional state troopers on the roads and on rural roads. And I know he asked for information. Greg DeCarlo used to do that all the time. So I believe he's going to be going for that grant. So it's not only Trooper Allen, but there'll be other troopers that he can get to be part of this grant, and so it's just strictly for rural roads.
Great.
So probably any of this information as far as timing and things like that, and what roads are showing a lot of the speeding, you know, that's where he could focus
Right.
his time on, so.
All right, I think we have our tools that, to the best of our ability, we can apply to this. I will update that spreadsheet and send it out to people so we can continue to monitor the progress of it. If there are additional reports that come in for these same locations, definitely keep those because we want to hear if people are reporting the same issue and it's not getting any better. And then the third issue is a potential solution to Gullen Road speeding. I don't know, rumble strips or something that would improve speeding, really? That's not really what they're meant to do, so I would not suggest we look at that as a potential countermeasure to pursue. We're way past the hour that I like these meetings to last, so I think any other issues, we will collect them into problem reports to look at for the next meeting. Audience of citizens.
So, to touch base on the Gallin Street, I live on Cherry Valley.
Yep.
What it is if you're in a 66-6 area and then you have like a Norwich address, the GPS will bring you through Cherry Valley to come out to like, let's say Lebanon area. So, and then the other thing too is there's that farm that's on the backside of Willimantic. Okay, yep. So I think some of them are working. I don't have I don't have valid to judge somebody based on that. I'm just saying that's what I tend to think is the issue, because there's also trucks that travel on there that go to that farm. And they go on Cherry Valley, Gallin.
Yeah, you're right,
And
to get up the cars.
they're really too wide for the road. The other thing too is sometimes if people, and it's like Willimantic, I know Willimantic traffic, wow. But the thing is sometimes people want to avoid it, so what they do is then they try to go through Cherry Valley, Gallin, and then they go Pleasant, and then pick up 32. So that's, and the GPS tends to bring you that way now with GPS.
I'm really glad you brought that up, and I can't believe I've totally forgotten this, because this is something we've looked at in other towns. If a GPS is recommending that you take a route, there are ways to potentially work with the administrators of those services to say, stop recommending that route.
Really?
Yes, part of it is sometimes they have the wrong information on speed limits. They might think a road is 60 when it's actually 30, and they're saying, take this road because it's faster. That's something.
And it works as a great cut through, but if you go to speed limit, it's not worth it.
Correct.
So if you're gonna use it as a cut through and you're running late, you got to speed in order to work to your advantage.
I can potentially get that data for Gullen Road, don't ask me how. I will look into that, I have a note here. Cool. Anything else, audience of citizens? Board member comments? We reached the end of our scheduled agenda, so there is a motion to adjourn. And it's second. We're done. 10:38. Thank you very much,